Alright, Mama Cat's in the way. We have to get rid of her. Come on. Get out of the way. Alrighty. I have 4 cups. I think it'll be a whole lot easier to do it with 4 cups. I hope so anyway. I remember doing it last time and it was pretty good. Alright, I'm going to take 4 pins. And I'm going to put one right here in the corner of this one. And then we're going to do the other side the same way. Put a pin in it. Alright, now, we have went around all the way. We've got the braid in the middle. So, what we want to do now is start getting, make it a square rug or a round rug like the other one. And, I want to try to make it a round rug. So we're going to probably add some more pins in there. Alrighty. I'm down here at this end. Where, let's see, do I have it in there? Yeah. So I'm right here at this one. So, what I'm going to do is, this one right here go over, right? Now I would make it, okay, yeah, it's supposed to be under, over, under, alright, over, and under. Ugh. Now, I hope that this right here will help me keep them a little bit more straighter. And plus, we can add more string if we have to. Alrighty. So, let me get it right. Oh, come on. Now it's supposed to go straight through it. There we go. Alright, I'm going to put 2 in this one. And we're going to lay it out. We don't want it tight, not real tight, but we do want it kind of tight. Alright, now, we want to go over, see, over, under, over. And we'll start pulling. And I'm going to go into the same one. Yeah. That way, we can start our descend or increase. Oh, come on. There you go. There we go. Alright, let's see if we can't add another one to this one. Now, when I get on down here, I'm going to want to make 2 again. And I'm fixing to change these to, working on some, pins. Because this string and that is not going to work too well. So, if I do it with pins, it'll be a whole lot easier to work with. We're going to figure it all out. God, it's been so long since I done this. But I really have enjoyed that rug. It still looks good. I think this right here is a better way to do a rug than to crochet it. Because it's like, for some odd reason, my crocheting ain't no good. Oh. And it just comes apart. I don't know why, but it does. Alright, let's get us a pin here. And I'm going to fold the top just a little bit to give it more sturdiness. Wouldn't you know, my cat wants out.
Who does this sound like to you? There I beheld the Ancient of Days, whose head was like wool, and with him another, whose countenance resembled that of a man. His countenance was full of grace, like that of one of the holy angels. Then I inquired to one of the angels who went with me, and who showed me every secret thing concerning this Son of Man, who he was, whence he was, and why he accompanied the Ancient of Days. He answered to me, This is the Son of Man, who righteousness belongs, with whom righteousness has dwelt, and who will reveal all the treasures of that which is concealed. For the Lord of spirits has chosen him, and his portion has surpassed all before the Lord of spirits in everlasting righteousness. Despite what you may think, the text I just read doesn't actually come from the Bible. It comes from an ancient scroll that was buried deep underground more than 300 years before Jesus Christ walked this earth. Now, let's examine that ancient text a little closer and see what we can find. So in this text we have the Son of Man, who accompanies the Ancient of Days. He looks like a man, he's full of grace, and righteousness belongs to him. The identity of the man in this ancient text is unmistakable. There can be no confusion or doubt as to who this text is referring to. There was only one person in the Bible who is called the Son of Man, and that is Jesus Christ. In fact, Jesus is referred to as the Son of Man dozens of times in the New Testament, as well as in the Old, in places like Psalm chapter 80, verse 14 through 19, and Daniel chapter 7, verses 13 and 14. But that's not all. In order to fully understand the true significance of this ancient text, we must take a journey back in time, all the way back to 1946. Just outside a small village in the country of Jordan, or as we know it today, Israel's West Bank. It is here where our story begins. One day, a Bedouin shepherd was tending his flock in an area known as Qumran when he suddenly fell into a hole in the ground. When he got up and looked around, he realized he had fallen into a cave of some sort. But it wasn't just any cave. As he looked around, he discovered the interior portions of the cave were filled with large clay jars. Intrigued, he opened the jars and discovered what is known today as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, over the next few years, archaeologists went on to discover 11 caves in Qumran that were filled with ancient scrolls. The oldest scrolls were dated to approximately 300 to 400 BC. That means these scrolls were placed in jars and sealed up 300 to 400 years before the birth of Jesus Christ. So, what's in these scrolls, you might ask? None other than the oldest known copies of the Hebrew Bible, or as most people know it by, the Old Testament. But that's not all they found. Some of the scrolls didn't fare too well over the 2,200 years plus they sat in the jars. When archaeologists opened some of the jars, they found the scrolls had somewhat disintegrated, leaving fragments of the scrolls. However, these fragments still had visible words on them, and miraculously, they were able to combine the fragments and slowly piece them together, and nobody expected what they were about to find. Hidden deep inside cave number 4 in Qumran, one particular jar held something that would go on to send shockwaves through the world. These are actual translations from Aramaic to English of scroll fragment 4Q530 and 4Q531. Quote, "The scribe Enoch, a copy of the second tablet that Enoch sent, in the very handwriting of Enoch, the noted scribe, in the name of God the Great and Holy One, to Shemhaza and all his companions. Let it be known to you that not, and the things you have done, and that your wives, and that their sons, and the wives of their sons, by your licentiousness on the earth, and there has been upon you. And the land is crying out and complaining about you and the deeds of your children, the harm that you have done to it, until Raphael arrives. Behold, destruction is coming, a great flood, and it will destroy all living things, and whatever is in the deserts and the seas, and the meaning of the matter, upon you for evil. But now, loosen the bonds binding you to evil and pray. Scroll 4Q531. They defiled. They begot giants and monsters. They begot, and behold, all the earth was corrupted with its blood, and by the hand of giants, which did not satisfy them, and they were seeking to devour many. The monsters attacked it. Now, let's go back to the ancient text that we read in the beginning of the video concerning the Son of Man, and consider this. The fragments I just read are from the very same book that describes Jesus Christ, the Son of Man. Simply put, the Dead Sea Scrolls contain portions of a book that lay out the entire gospel of Jesus Christ 300 years before he walked the earth. How is that possible, you might ask? Let's read it together. And this is the second parable concerning those who deny the name of the dwelling of the holy ones and the Lord of spirits. They shall not ascend to heaven, and they shall not come on the earth. Such shall be the lot of the sinners who have denied the name of the Lord of spirits, who are preserved for the day of suffering and tribulation. On that day my elect one shall sit on the throne of glory, and shall try the works of the righteous, and their places of rest shall be innumerable. And their souls shall grow strong within them, when they see my elect one, and those who have called my glorious name. Then I will cause my elect one to dwell among them. I will transform heaven and make it an eternal blessing and light. And I will transform the earth and make it a blessing. And I will cause my elect ones to dwell on it. But the sinners and the evildoers shall not set foot on it. For I have seen and satisfied my righteous ones with peace, and have caused them to dwell before me. But for the sinners there is judgment impending with me, so that I shall destroy them from the face of the earth. And there I saw one whose face looked ancient. His head was white like wool, and with him was another being, whose countenance had the appearance of a man, and his face was full of graciousness like one of the holy angels. And I asked the angel who went with me, and showed me all the hidden things concerning that Son of Man, who he was, and whence he came, and why he went with the Ancient One. And he answered and said to me, This is the Son of Man, who hath righteousness, with whom dwells righteousness, and who reveals all the treasures of that which is hidden, because the Lord of spirits has chosen him, and whose lot has preeminence before the Lord of spirits in righteousness, and is forever. And this Son of Man whom you have seen shall rise up the kings and the mighty from their seats, and the strong from their thrones, and shall loosen the reins of the strong, and break the teeth of the sinners. And he shall put down the kings from their thrones and kingdoms, because they do not exalt and praise him, nor humbly acknowledge who bestowed their kingdom on them. And he shall make the strong hang their heads, and fill them with shame. And darkness shall be their dwelling, and worms shall be their bed. And they shall not have hope from rising from their beds, because they do not exalt the name of the Lord of spirits. They raise their hands against the Most High, and tread on the earth and dwell on it. And all their deeds manifest unrighteousness. Their power rests on the riches, and their faith is in the gods which they have made with their own hands. They deny the name of the Lord of spirits, and they persecute the houses of his congregations, and the faithful who depend on the name of the Lord of spirits. In those days the prayer of the righteous shall have ascended, and the blood of the righteous from the earth shall be before the Lord of spirits. In those days the holy ones who dwell above in heavens shall unite with one voice, and supplicate and pray and praise, and give thanks and bless the name of the Lord of spirits on behalf of the blood of the righteous which has been shed, that the prayer of the righteous may not be in vain before the Lord of spirits, that they may have justice, and that they may not have to wait forever. In those days I saw the head of days when he seated himself on the throne of his glory, and the books of the living were opened before him, and all his host which is in heaven above and his counselors stood before him. And the hearts of the holy were filled with joy, because the number of the righteous had been offered, and the prayer of the righteous had been heard, and the blood of the righteous had not been required before the Lord of spirits. And in that place I saw the spring of righteousness, which was inexhaustible, and around it were many springs of wisdom, and all the thirsty drank from them, and filled with wisdom. And their dwellings were the righteous and the holy elect. And at that hour the Son of Man was named in the presence of the Lord of spirits, and his name was brought before the head of days. Even before the sun and the signs were created, before the stars in heaven were made, his name was named before the Lord of spirits. He shall be a staff to the righteous, and they shall steady themselves and not fall. And he shall be the light of the Gentiles, and the hope of those who are troubled of heart. All who dwell on the earth shall fall down and worship before him, and will praise and bless and sing and celebrate the Lord of spirits. And for this reason he has been chosen and hidden and front and kept safe by him before the creation of the world and forevermore. And the wisdom of the Lord of spirits has revealed him to the holy and righteous. For he has preserved the law of the righteous, because they have hated and rejected this world of unrighteousness, and have hated all of its works and ways in the name of the Lord of spirits. For in his name they are saved, and according to his good pleasure, and it is he who has regard to their life. In these days the kings of the earth and the strong who possess the land because of the works of the hand shall be shamed, because on the day of their anguish and affliction they shall not be able to save themselves. And I will give them over to the hands of my elect. As straw in the fire, so shall they burn before the face of the holy. As lead in the water shall they sink before the face of the righteous, and no trace of them shall be found any more. And on that day of their affliction there shall be rest on the earth, because the evil ones will be destroyed. And before him they shall fall down and not rise again. And there shall be no one to take them with his hands and raise them up, for they have denied the Lord of spirits and his anointed. The name of the Lord of spirits be blessed. For wisdom is poured out like water, and glory will not fail before him ever. For he is mighty in all the secrets of righteousness, and unrighteousness shall disappear like a shadow, and will no longer exist, because the elect one stands before the Lord of spirits, and his glory is forever and ever, and his might for all generations. In him dwells the spirit of wisdom, and the spirit which gives insight, and the spirit of understanding and of might, and the spirit of those who have fallen asleep in righteousness. And he shall judge the secret things, and no one shall be able to utter a lying or idle word before him. For he is the elect one before the Lord of spirits, according to his good pleasure. And in those days change shall take place for the holy and elect, and the light of the days shall abide on them, and glory and honor shall turn them to the holy. On the day of trouble affliction will be heaped on the evil, and the righteous shall be victorious in the name of the Lord of spirits. For he willed this to others, that they may repent and turn away from the works of their hands. They shall have no honor through the name of the Lord of spirits, but through his name they shall be saved. And the Lord of spirits will have compassion on them, for his mercy is great. He is righteous also in his judgment, and in the presence of his glory unrighteousness shall not stand. His judgment at the unrepentant shall perish before him, and from now on I will have no mercy on them, says the Lord of spirits. In case you haven't figured out what book we are reading from yet, I'll let author Joseph Lumpkin explain it to you. Quote, "The Book of Enoch, First Enoch, was discovered in the 18th century. It was assumed to have been penned after the beginning of the Christian era. This theory was based on the fact that it had quotes and paraphrases as well as concepts found in the New Testament. Thus, it was assumed that it was heavily influenced by the writers such as Jude and Peter. However, recent discoveries of copies of the book among the Dead Sea Scrolls found at Qumran prove the book was in existence before the time of Jesus Christ. The book of Jude tells us in verse 14 that, quote, Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied. Also in verse 15 makes a direct reference to the book of Enoch, where he writes, to execute judgment on all, to convict all who are ungodly. As a matter of fact, it is a direct word-for-word quote. Therefore, Jude's reference to Enochian prophecies strongly leans towards the conclusion that these written prophecies were available to him at the time. Fragments of 10 manuscripts of Enoch were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. Since any book stands to be interpreted in many ways, Enoch posed problems for some theologians. Instead of re-examining their own theology, they thought to dispose of which went counter to their beliefs. Some of the visions of Enoch are believed to point to the consummation of the age in conjunction with Christ's second coming. This being the case, it should not be a surprise to us that Enoch was declared a fake and was rejected by Hilary, Jerome, and Augustine. Enoch was subsequently lost to Western Christendom for over 1,000 years." End quote. Lost for over 1,000 years, only to be rediscovered when a shepherd fell through a hole in the ground. Amazing. Now, I should make it perfectly clear that I'm not saying that the book of Enoch is inspired by God or it's in the same level as the Holy Bible. No, I think of it kind of like a journal, Enoch's journal, a first-person account of what he saw when God took him to heaven. Think about that. Enoch is describing Jesus Christ in heaven. It's absolutely amazing. We know that Enoch was taken to heaven by God. It's in the Bible. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 5, quote, "By faith Enoch was translated, that he should not see death, and he was not found, because God had translated him. For before the translation was his testimony, that he pleased God." So what do you think about the Book of Enoch? What are your thoughts on this? Please put your thoughts and your opinions in the comment section below. And if you have
I reached out to you. I'm like, were you ever on the show? And you're like, no. I'm like, oh, that's such a fail on my part. And so we've been trying to schedule this for months now. And here you are in Tennessee to tell your experience. Before we get into your experience, though, are you still running your research group?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so tell the people what it's called and what it's all about.
It's Midwest Bigfoot Researchers, and it's primarily just myself and this other guy, Brandon, calls himself Dango. He goes with me whenever he gets a chance off of work. Occasionally I'll take some other people, but it's just solely been myself.
Yeah.
I've, just searching for the answers and whatever I need to find myself. And I got involved in some people that called me up for some real investigations, and it just took off because I didn't expect it to. I didn't have any idea that it was, especially when I picked the name for, Midwest Michigan, which is what I thought. And then we ended up going from, Michigan all the way to Florida and every state in between, and some of the neighboring states. And it just grew and grew and grew. We'll get to that later. But it's been a really strange trip. And it was, I mean, like 2016 when I met you, I just remembered bits and pieces of my encounters as a child from the barn. And there was actually more that returned to my memory because I was hypnotized and forgot about it. We'll get to that too. But that was an interesting.
So in 2016, when you met me, you and I were talking. You were, that was like, I guess, the beginning stages of your memories and everything like that. Is that right?
Yeah, I was just like a couple of years into remembering. I think it was 2014 when I first remembered. And actually, when I first remembered, I thought it was a movie. I didn't know what it was because it came back in chunks and it just seemed really real, but like I couldn't remember anything. It was really, really bizarre to have these memories come back. And it was, my dad was still alive. My mother was been dead since 2004, but I finally confronted my dad about it. Our family had issues and just, everything fell apart because of the encounters and what the government did to her. I'll get to that. But there wasn't a whole lot of me seeing my parents much when I was, growing up after that. No, I didn't see him a whole lot. My dad finally came out, and after I asked him directly, just before he died, I mean, literally died after he told me, like 2 days after. It was really strange. So was my mother's death, but he cleared up a lot of it, and that kind of like got me going to where I'm not imagining this stuff, and I started to go find witnesses and getting little bits and pieces from other witnesses, and finding out that most of the kids back then who were involved were hypnotized with the mothers, not the fathers. The fathers were threatened. I'll get to that too, and what they're threatened.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm really excited to talk to you about this. And it's starting to make sense now because so I don't remember a whole lot of stuff. Like just in general, I have very limited bandwidth anymore, And when I was sitting back thinking about our first experience, my encounter with you, was meeting you, not encounter. You're not a Bigfoot. Maybe. If so, we have you on camera. But I remember talking to you. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but if my memory serves me right, I felt like you were struggling with people not believing you at that time, because I remember
that time when was there. I met before that and down in Florida, and spent a couple of days with him down there, and he just basically told me straight up that he was a human lie detector, and he could tell when people are making stuff up, and he just thought I was just making stuff up.
Oh, man.
And when I went to that conference with you in 2016, and I had dinner with, and he came over and sat with me and everything like that, was all excited about it. I told my whole encounter, and he stood up, and that was kind of a cool moment when he stood up, and all the researchers there. I don't know if you're there. He's going like, oh, "This is a real researcher. This guy is really cool. These guys are awesome."
Oh, wow, that's cool.
And in front of everybody, and like after that, he went and talked to him. He was got a little talk to him. There's a video of talking about that I have a little bit of a clip that.
All right. Well, so officially, I'm not trying to drum up drama here between anybody here. So, but I brought that up because I remember personally feeling like you had that experience with people, because I feel like you said something to me like, if you don't believe me, I don't care, or something like that, and I'm just like, I don't not believe you, like, you know what I mean?
Well, even then, there wasn't a whole lot of encounters out there like mine, and
Sure.
now there is. A lot of people have just come out of the woodwork with it, and I know of other people that had similar childhood encounters. And I even one time in Kentucky, I had 2 other guys with me, and we're taking back roads across the state, as we usually do from our spots that we research. We don't like to take the highways. We went by this little store, and this lady had this homemade ghillie suit out front, and she saw my marked truck, and she thought we were from Finding Bigfoot. And when we walked in, the first thing she started talking about was her son going out playing with an orangutan out by this dam out in the woods, and it was swinging from tree to tree, and how he played with it. And she told him, and like, these 2 guys that are with, been hearing my story the whole time, and their mouths were just like, I got it on audio. I recorded her talking about it. And from time to time, I come across other encounters like that. And like I said, I still got a couple of witnesses that I got to go find. If one of the addresses that I got that I looked up didn't come with a phone number, so I got to drive all the way over to look for this guy. But he's one of the kids that played with him too, and hopefully he'll open up about it. Now the other kids were all hypnotized. The ones in the barn encounters, and they're all in politics.
Interesting. All right, so let's get into it then. We're gonna. I told you before we started recording, there is no time limit. The only time limit is when we have to stop to actually pull the SD cards and clean them off and put them back in the cameras. And just for people to understand before we get into this, right now, this is not traditional. I usually don't do my interviews on video a whole lot, just because, or let's put it this way. I usually always do my interviews on video, but I rarely put them out on YouTube because I don't have time. But I with you here in studio, I'm really going to try to get it put on YouTube. So if you're listening right now, you want to watch this interview, it is on YouTube. And if it's not, I apologize in advance. But let's get into this then, because your childhood story is something that you are memories that you had to recover, but it involves you and other people essentially in a relationship with a juvenile Sasquatch.
Yep.
And so from this point forward, I want you to share your story and how you remember it. And I just want to tell you, piggybacking off the comment you just said a few minutes ago, somebody's got to be a whipping boy, and you were that. And my friend Wes at Sasquatch Chronicles, he was a whipping boy. And since he's come out talking about the spider crawl, other people have had encounters. I had a lady on my show who she was telling me her haunting stories. She brings on her sister-in-law, who tells us how she had this experience where this creature was walking like a spider on all 4, and it looks back at her like almost like the way it turned its head was almost inhuman, and it was walking up a mountainside, and it was like 30 miles away from where Wes had his encounter, and she had no idea who Wes was. She didn't know who I was. She never heard. Cool. She didn't even want to call it Bigfoot because she's like, I don't know what it was, and you guys keep wanting to call it Bigfoot. We're like, yeah, just trust us. But I just wanted to say, when you or Wes or anybody else comes out with extraordinary experiences, naturally most people don't want to believe it because it scares them and it pushes them off of their traditional way of thinking. So you, Wes, and there's been other people throughout history who have been. Bob Gimlin was a whipping boy, you know what I mean? And so
he told me about that stuff personally. He's really tore his life up.
So let's get into it. Share with me and the audience the story that made you a whipping boy. I mean, how did this all start out for you? As far as was it just like you were having dreams and that's how memories started coming back, or what?